Greetings, YouTube. 大家好. I'm Tony the Changfilth, or Tony Creator on DeviantArt. Today I have Marvel Legends 12-inch Thor from Hasbro. This figure marks the first time in years that I paid full retail price for a toy. $54.23 to be exact. Those who frequent my channel probably know that I buy toys and figures at around half price from discount stores where I live. But seeing Thor in his 12-inch Asgardian glory at Best Buy, and knowing that Marvel Legends figures rarely appear at places like Ross or Marshall's, made me decide to break tradition. I also have a soft spot for blondes, so there's that. Speaking of blondes, I wish that I came across an Adora figure years ago. Before we look at Thor himself, here are his two Mjolnir hammers. Whoa, trying to test my worthiness. One Mjolnir is your standard large hammer that is well painted and well sculpted. And the other has this blue translucent plastic that gives off the illusion of the hammer giving off or receiving energy. The handles for both hammers are painted brown and silver. Either hammer can fit into either of these slightly open hands, as seen here. Some force will have to be used to create an opening between the fingers for either hammer to fit into. Be careful to not use too much force, or else you'll break those fingers. Either hammer can be placed onto Thor's right hip by fitting the bottom of the handle through the top of the plastic hoop molded alongside his belt. Now for the hands. Thor comes with two fists and two slightly open hands. Each hand is well painted and well sculpted, especially the beige bandage wraps with the sculpted linen texture. Even fingernails were sculpted in. Take note of how the fists and the slightly open hands articulate differently. The fists hinge or swivel side to side, while the open hands hinge or swivel up and down, tightly in some cases. To peg them into the arms, slowly twist any hand into each corresponding forearm like so, instead of just pushing them in to avoid damaging the pegs. Same with twisting the hands out. There's more. Thor comes with two separate heads, two different hairstyles, and a signature helmet. Now why is one hairstyle all smooth on top, has molded brown plastic glued in the back, and has a square peg hole? This allows the separate helmet piece to peg onto the top of Thor's smoothed hair. Then you can peg either the helmeted head or the molded hairstyle onto the top of either of Thor's heads. With these pieces displayed in this shot, you can create up to 4 different ways to display his head. Slowly twist either head into this ball joint, as seen here. I should point out that the helmet and the hairstyles don't exactly peg tightly on Thor's heads. If one is clumsy like I am, Thor's hairpieces can come off by accident when playing with him. Now for Thor Sinsang himself, who towers over almost every action figure, Power Rangers Megazord, and Transformer in my collection, at 12¼ inches tall. One of the toys in my lineup that can almost stand head-to-head with him is my Beast Hunters Ultimate Optimus Prime, who stands between 10¾ inches to 11 inches tall. Thor is also quite heavy for a toy his size, about 2 pounds at least. Since I exaggerate often, I'll tell you that this figure makes even me, an adult who stands between 5'8" and 5'9", look puny by comparison. A closer look at Thor shows proof of Hasbro bringing their A game when making this figure. For the most part, the figure looks and feels solid and sculpted. From top to bottom, you can see top-notch paint all over him. Paintwork that you could expect from toys that are at least twice this toy's price range. There's leathery texture all over his clothing, as you can also see. Speaking of clothing, Thor has his muscle tank top, partially detachable belt, skirt flaps, square patterned leg armor, knee-high boots, and red cape. Thor only shows skin through his arms, but they also impress. Them biceps, triceps, and veins though. Another reminder that I'll have to bench more than 70 pounds. Thor's also sporting black wristbands with spikes. Reminds me of someone else who wears them. Thor's red cape looks fantastic, though I can't tell what fabric was used to make it. The drawback is that the cape is so long that it drags along any surface that happens to have dust, picking up dust in consequence. I'll have to figure out how to remove the cape without using scissors, if possible. Now on to articulation. Fun. Thor's head swivels left and right. The swivel in Thor's neck joint allows Thor's head to swivel up and down, but as you can see, I pulled off his hair. Thor's shoulders can hinge or swivel up and down. They can swivel forward and backward. Pay attention, because the shoulders are connected by these small pegs. They also serve as a mixed blessing, because taking them out also allows me to figure out where the swivel joints for the shoulders are, in case that I have problems articulating them or moving them. There's also a bicep swivel, as you've already seen a few moments ago. Thor has double jointed elbows, but they can be stiff at times, as you can see here. Wrist swivel. Like I mentioned before, the fists hinge or swivel left to right. The slightly open hands can hinge or swivel up and down. Remember that they're tight joints though. Thor has a ball-jointed diaphragm joint in his torso that lets his upper body swivel left to right and crunch forward and backward. Oh, as you can see, he also has a ratcheted ab crunch. Forgot to mention that Thor's diaphragm joint lets his upper body tilt and pivot. Thor's leg articulation. If you detach the pegs on Thor's skirt flaps, the ball joints in Thor's hips should let him rotate his legs all around and partially do the splits. At least I think that they're ball joints. Thor has swivel joints in his thighs. He has double jointed knees. Didn't feel like moving Thor's right knee, but I should add that the joints in his right knee are a little loose. There's a calf swivel, which we can barely see. Thor's feet can hinge forward and backward, and they pivot on swivel joints. Wish that he had toe hinges as well. If fighting game fans are watching, doesn't Thor resemble somebody? Beefy frame, long flowing blonde hair, dark muscle shirt with lines? In case that you haven't guessed, beardless Thor almost looks like Ken Masters from how he looked in Street Fighter V. Ken Mas Thor. There, I said it! Thanks to Thor's articulation, I can have him mimic most of Ken's poses from the games, except the Hadoken, because he obviously doesn't have open-palmed hands. I could go even further. I might even put him into Chun-Li's poses. Speaking of Chun-Li, if TV Tropes is correct, she herself is fond of blonde guys. Perhaps she gave the Thunder God some pointers? What was just said sounds weird, huh? Perhaps not entirely. Thor is a thunder god after all. He should have the absurdly long lifespan and the physique needed to master as many martial arts styles as he chooses. Also, viewers have to admit that seeing Thor as a martial artist would be undeniably epic as fuck. Is 12-inch Thor recommended despite his pros and cons? If you're a Marvel fan and or a Thor fan, this toy would be worthy for your collection. If this helps, Thor can be found at Toys R Us or on Amazon.com. No guarantees though, thanks to the upcoming film Thor Ragnarok, which might increase demand for Thor merchandise like this one, as well as the difficulty in finding Thor merchandise like this one. I was lucky enough to buy the last Thor figure at Best Buy just 6 minutes after the store opened that Thursday. Do I wish that Thor would be cheaper? Yes, of course! I was on a budget and part-time gigs weren't as frequent in months past. I felt bad knowing that I spent over $50 on a toy when money wasn't coming in and expenses in the Bay Area weren't getting cheaper. Still, I figured that I earned the privilege to splurge a little, since I've done my best to be a better person this year. Plus, my birthday's coming up. Thor's my early birthday gift. Before I end this video, there will be plenty of shoutouts. For those who like video game live streams on YouTube, Techno Puppet, Kazi Kid 3, and Bravo 141 are 3 of my top picks. They've played titles like Deus Ex, Sleeping Dogs, Rainbow Six Siege, and so on. Links to their channels will be in the description. I miss being a gamer. This video is also for fellow toy collector and Bay Area native D-Bag Robot Gang. He also saw 12-inch Thor at a Toys R Us just recently. Don't know if he bought him though. This has been my review of the 12-inch Thor. I'm Tony the Changfilth, also known as Tony Creada on DeviantArt. Feel free to comment and all that. And also feel free to visit my DeviantArt page. Link in the description, as usual. Thanks again for watching. 多謝收睇。